Headlines about Phil Mickelson losing his home are spreading fast right now across the golf world. You see the words saying his family secretly sold his only house without his permission. When you know his history of wild, off-course choices, this sounds like the ultimate breakdown. We need to look at the actual facts before believing the internet hype. Phil is not sitting on the street. He is still a very wealthy man with massive resources. The core of this story is not fake at all. His family did take extreme action behind his back recently. They forced a massive property sale and cut ties with an elite golf club. Normal real estate deals do not happen this way in the professional sports world. The people closest to him stepped in and made a final decision for him. At 56 years old, the golf legend is no longer in full control of his own assets. His inner circle drew a hard line in the sand recently. They decided his current lifestyle was too dangerous to continue moving forward. I truly believe families must step in when a legend loses his way. Do you agree? And if so, please hit subscribe to join the conversation. Behind the scenes, this was a complete takeover of his daily life. The people managing his money looked at his habits and decided to lock him out. His bank account remains completely full, making the sudden forced sale of his older property look like a direct punishment. To understand the fracture, you first need to understand what Phil actually owns right now. The headline screams about his only house disappearing into thin air. That is simply not true based on the public records. His primary family base sits in Rancho Santa Fe, California, a gated community where top-tier golfers and billionaires live side by side. That property is not going anywhere anytime soon. Nobody touched it, and nobody even discussed selling it. The moment you hear the phrase about his only house, you already know the story got twisted somewhere along the way. What makes this even more interesting is what Phil was doing with his money at the exact same time his family was making moves behind his back. In 2023, reports confirmed he quietly purchased 21 acres of land in a San Diego neighborhood. The price tag sat around $70 million for the raw land. The plan was to build a massive personal compound from scratch. We are talking about a private golf setup, custom living spaces, the kind of project a man builds when he wants total control over his environment. $70 million for dirt and a dream. A massive new estate takes absolute priority, making the sudden liquidation of his older desert property look like a direct punishment. Think about that contrast for a second while we look at the golf culture. On one hand, Phil is spending tens of millions to create his perfect world. On the other hand, someone in his inner circle is ripping away a property he already owned. Those two things do not happen at the same time unless there is a serious problem at home. A man building his dream estate does not normally lose access to another property unless someone with legal authority over his finances steps in and says no. That is exactly what happened here in the desert. The wealth management team handling his assets made a call, not a suggestion and not a casual conversation. A direct call. One phone call that changed his access to a very specific, very exclusive piece of real estate overnight. Losing a club membership in professional golf is not like losing a standard gym pass. These private organizations are fortresses with massive buy-ins and years of waiting lists just to get a foot in the door. When a player gets forced out, the entire golf world whispers about it behind closed doors. The specific property in question sits in the deep desert golf corridor of Southern California. This area is famous for ultra-private estates and courses where billionaires go to hide from the public eye. A single phone call stripped him of a membership he held for years, and the people on the other end of that line were not his agents. The privacy in this desert area is absolute and completely unmatched anywhere else. What happens on these courses stays on these courses, without any media coverage. When a family steps in and forces a sudden liquidation, that absolute privacy gets shattered completely for everyone to see. Think about the logistics of this real estate move and the legal structures involved. You cannot just walk into a club like this and demand to buy a condo on a whim. The board has to approve you first and check your background. They check your reputation and your financial standing very carefully. Phil passed all those checks years ago and became a valued member. The course became his second home, where he hosted private events and spent countless weekends on the greens. To undo that status requires a level of authority that goes far beyond a standard real estate transaction. This brings us to the exact mechanics of how a sale happens without the owner's direct blessing. In high-net-worth families, assets are often tied up in trusts or managed by joint firms. If the primary account holder gives a direct order, the managers execute it immediately without hesitation. They do not ask for a second opinion or wait for approval. They just move the money and sign the papers to finalize the deal. Financial executives simply followed the orders they were given, while the person who actually gave those orders was the one individual Phil never expected to turn against him. We need to look closer at the people who actually hold the keys to his financial kingdom. Phil is not just a golfer who wins tournaments on the weekend. He is a massive brand, a business entity, and a high-stakes gambler with complex finances. All of that requires a team of professionals to keep the money flowing and the assets protected. His wealth management firm is not just a group of advisors giving casual tips. They are the gatekeepers who hold the power to move millions of dollars with a single signature. When the family decided to make a change, they did not go through a long legal battle in court. They used the existing structures they already had in place to act quickly. The firm received a direct mandate to sell the desert property and terminate the club membership immediately. The managers at the firm knew this would cause a massive scene at the exclusive club. They knew the board of directors would be shocked by the sudden demand. They did not care about the social fallout because their duty was to the family unit. This is where the phrase about doing it without permission comes from in the headlines. Phil did not sign the final closing documents for the condo or write the resignation letter. His signature was not on the paperwork because the legal structure allowed his family to act on his behalf. Cold efficiency defined the execution, leaving the club members completely unprepared for the shock they had to watch unfold in real time. To understand how a firm can sell a private asset without the owner signing, you have to look at the specific legal structures used by ultra-wealthy athletes. Phil did not just put his name on a standard deed. His assets are held in complex revocable and irrevocable trusts. When a joint wealth management firm is granted power of attorney over these specific trusts, they have the absolute legal right to liquidate assets. The lawyers draft the paperwork, the trustees sign the authorization, and the real estate brokers list the property. The owner does not need to sign a single document if the trust agreement allows the managers to act independently. This is the exact legal loophole his family used to bypass his direct consent. Inside the Madison Club, the social fallout was just as severe as the financial maneuvering. The club operates on a strict code of conduct and mutual respect among its elite members. When a high-profile member is abruptly removed by a third-party financial firm, it violates the unwritten rules of the community. The board of directors was reportedly furious that their private sanctuary was being used as a pawn in a family dispute. They tried to negotiate a quiet exit, but the wealth managers refused to compromise. Public embarrassment for the club leadership was just the beginning, setting the stage for an even deeper invasion into his daily practice routine. Inside the clubhouse, the rumors started spreading before the ink was even dry on the sale. Members saw the property listed on the market and immediately started asking questions about the sudden change. The staff was tight-lipped, but in a place this small, secrets do not last long among the elite. People knew Phil, and they knew his wife and the lifestyle they led at the club. When the news broke that the membership was terminated, the reaction was pure disbelief from the other members. This was not a player who just moved to a different state for a change of scenery. This was a complete erasure from the club's history and member directory. The board had to hold an emergency meeting to figure out how to handle the unusual situation. They had to remove his name from the directory, cancel his locker, and revoke his guest privileges. It is a highly unusual process for a member of his status and fame. Usually, when a celebrity leaves a club, they do it quietly and let the membership expire naturally. They do not get forcefully removed by a wealth management firm in the middle of the year. The members who saw this happen started to realize that something was deeply wrong in the Mickelson household. The golf course is supposed to be a sanctuary where a player can escape the pressure of the tour. His desert escape vanished completely, although the disappearance was only the first domino to fall in a much larger chain of events. Looking at the broader picture of his life over the last few years explains why the family took such drastic action. The golf world has watched him navigate some very public storms over the last few years. We are not going to rehash every old headline because you already know the history and the facts. What matters is the current state of his personal life as he approaches his late 50s. At 56, the margin for error is zero for a man of his public profile. The decisions he makes now do not just affect his bank account or his golf game, They affect his legacy, his marriage, and his relationship with his children who are watching him closely. The family looked at his trajectory and saw a man who was drifting away from his goals. They saw habits that were too risky, and a lifestyle pulling him away from the stability he needed. The intervention was not just about money or real estate portfolios. It was about environment control and removing the physical triggers of his past mistakes. You cannot fix a person's habits if they are still living in the exact same environment that created those habits. The Desert Club was a symbol of that old lifestyle where he could do whatever he wanted without oversight. By forcing the sale of the condo and terminating the membership, the family was literally changing his physical environment. Family members successfully locked down his desert playground, only to follow it up with an even more painful eviction from his daily routine. Wife's unilateral decisions created a massive shock, serving as a prelude to an even more painful separation from his favorite practice grounds. Let us finally name the person who gave the order to the wealth management firm. It was his wife, Amy, who has been by his side for decades. For decades, Amy has been the quiet force behind his career and his public image. She has managed the household, raised the children, and kept his life grounded while he chased golf balls around the world. The dynamic between them has changed significantly in recent years as the pressures mounted. The patience that defined their early years has run out completely. Amy is not just a supportive spouse anymore, she is the co-manager of his life. When she looked at the wealth management reports, she did not just see numbers on a page. She saw a husband who was losing his focus and a family legacy that was at risk. She made the decision that he was not willing to make for himself. The call to the wealth management firm came directly from her phone. She instructed them to liquidate the Madison Club property and terminate the membership immediately. She did it without asking for his permission, because she knew he would say no and argue. By acting unilaterally, she removed his ability to fight back against the changes. The legal structures they had set up years ago allowed her to make this move without his direct signature. Home course removal was a brutal move, serving as just one piece of a much larger, calculated cleanup that was about to reshape his entire legacy. The Madison Club was just the beginning of the cleanup operation by his inner circle. Once the family established that they had the power to make these drastic changes, they did not stop there. They looked at his entire golf footprint in Southern California and decided more needed to be done. The next target was much closer to his actual home in Rancho Santa Fe. For years, his primary golf sanctuary was the Farms Golf Club, his true home course. This was not just a place to play, it was where he practiced and prepared for major championships. It was the center of his golfing universe and his daily routine. The family decided that even this course was too connected to his past and his old habits. They needed to remove him from the environment that enabled his previous lifestyle choices. Recently, it was reported that Phil was effectively pushed out of the farms by the management. The official statement from his camp cited a family health matter to the press. That is the standard public relations language for keeping him away from this place quietly. The reality is that the family intervention extended directly to his daily practice routine. They wanted him to practice in isolation at the new $70 million compound where they could control the environment. The golf world watched this sequence of events with a mix of shock and fascination. Players on tour talk and caddies share stories in the locker rooms every single week. When the news broke about the Madison Club and the Farms, the whispers started immediately. Everyone knew that Phil was a unique character who lived life on his own terms. To see his family step in and completely override his decisions was unprecedented in modern golf. It sent a ripple through the entire golf community about the fragility of personal autonomy. For Phil, the public reaction was just background noise compared to his private reality. The real challenge was dealing with the new daily reality of his restricted life. He had to wake up and realize that his access to his favorite places was gone forever. He had to drive past the gates of the Madison Club knowing he was no longer a member. He had to find a new place to practice because the Farms was no longer an option. This is where the psychological toll becomes very real for a professional athlete. Golf is a game of routine, and players need comfort to feel at home on the course. When you take away a player's home course, you disrupt their entire mental framework. Mental toll from losing his sanctuaries was heavy, bringing us to the ultimate goal of this family takeover, which reveals a complete shift in control. Bringing all of this together reveals the big picture of the situation. The headline said his family secretly sold his only house without his permission. That is a massive exaggeration designed to get clicks on the internet. He did not lose his primary home, and he is building a new $70 million estate. The core truth of the headline is absolutely real and verified by multiple sources. His family did secretly force the sale of a major property at the Madison Club. They did terminate his elite club memberships without his direct blessing or signature. They did it to save him from himself and protect the family legacy. This was a full-scale lifestyle intervention executed by his wife and wealth managers. The part about doing it without permission was not a legal forgery or a scam. It was a unilateral decision using the legal structures they had in place for years. They looked at his life, saw the risks, and decided to lock him down completely. They removed the desert playground and the home course to isolate him. This is what happens when a legend loses his way and needs a reset. The people who love him the most have to make the hard choices to protect him. Strict family management now controls his daily life, leaving golf fans wondering if this restricted version of Phil can still compete at the highest level. The ultimate question now revolves around his future on the golf course. Can a man who has been stripped of his freedom actually win golf tournaments? The family intervention was designed to save his personal life and his marriage. What about his professional life and his chances on the senior circuit? The Champions Tour is waiting for him, and the senior majors are the next big stage. To win at that level, you need total focus and a quiet mind. You need to believe in yourself and your ability to execute under pressure. When your family has to step in and take away your golf courses, it raises serious doubts about your mental state. The golf world is watching to see if this discipline actually translates to better play. Some people believe that this strict management is exactly what he needs to win. They think that removing the distractions and the enablers will allow him to focus purely on golf. They think that the isolation will sharpen his mind and improve his game significantly. They believe that a controlled environment is the key to winning senior majors. Other people are not so sure about his chances moving forward. They worry that the emotional toll of the intervention will be too much to handle. Upcoming months on the senior tour will reveal if this strict discipline translates into victories, or if the emotional toll breaks his competitive spirit. The impact on his brand and business ventures requires careful consideration. Phil is not just a player, he is a course designer and a successful businessman. He has built a massive empire off the course over the last 2 decades. When his family takes control of his personal life, it inevitably affects his business life. The people who partner with him want to know that he is stable and focused. They want to know that he is fully in control of his own destiny and decisions. When headlines break about his family forcing the sale of his properties, it creates uncertainty. Business partners do not like uncertainty and they avoid risky situations. They want predictability and assurance that the man they are dealing with is reliable. The family intervention sends a signal to the business world that Phil is not fully in control. It signals that his wife and his wealth managers are the ones making the big decisions. This could impact his ability to secure new course design deals in the future. It could impact his relationships with sponsors who want a stable ambassador. The business world is ruthless, and if they sense weakness, they will move on to someone else. Phil has to work twice as hard to prove that his business acumen is still sharp. Business world projection of strength, while dealing with a personal takeover, is a delicate balancing act that could define his legacy off the course. Broader implications for his legacy in the game of golf are now permanently altered. When we talk about golf legends, we talk about their major championships and their impact. We also talk about how they handled their personal lives and their public image. Phil Mickelson has always been remembered as the ultimate risk-taker on and off the course. He was the guy who played the aggressive shot and took the big swings. That persona extended to his life off the course, where he lived on the edge. This family intervention completely rewrites that persona and changes how we view him. It takes the ultimate risk-taker and puts him in a cage of strict rules. History will remember this moment, when his family had to step in to save him. It is a fascinating twist in the story of one of golf's most colorful characters. The legend of Lefty is no longer just about the miraculous chips and the long putts. It is now also about the family intervention and the forced sale of the Madison Club condo. These are the new chapters in his biography that show the human side of the legend. They show that even the greatest players are vulnerable to personal struggles. Reaching the end of this story makes the reality of the situation completely clear. The headline was exaggerated, but the truth was even more dramatic and impactful. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the real story behind the headlines. If you found this analysis helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more honest, in-depth golf content. We will see you in the next video.